Hello, class. This is chapter three. One of my personal favorites that we'll cover throughout the semester. Again, it's an introductory chapter, but again, this is what I do on a daily basis in my as a lawyer. So again, when I went to law school, my specialization in law school was labor and employment law. So dealing with different types of discrimination and harassment and retaliation and things along those lines. So that's because it's what I do every day. It's what I'm very passionate about. And I love to share with you some of the highlights of this chapter. Again, I don't want to go into every little detail, but I want you there's just a couple things that I really want you to know for chapter 3. First off is, you hear this term employment discrimination or, harassment or things along those lines. Again, the definition we're going to be working at is employment discrimination can be defined as a limitation or a denial of employment opportunity based on or related to a protected characteristic. And and actually, if you go to page 75 in your textbook, there is a full list of protected classes. And again, whenever you hear me use the term protected class or protected group or anything along those lines, this is the group that I'm going to be referring to throughout the rest of the semester. So now, the list that you see on page 75 is only federally protected. So every employee in all 50 states have these protections under federal law. Now, each U.S. state can actually add to this list if they want to. They can't take away anything, but they can add to it. So now, for simplicity purposes, because again, we're in Illinois, but some of you might be from Iowa or Indiana or any of the surrounding states, or even California, Florida, Texas, wherever. So I'm not going to worry about each individual state. So for our purposes in this class, we're just going to focus on these federal ones. I'll give you a prime example. In Illinois has a lot more state protections against, discrimination against members of the LGBTQ community, for example. So, and again, there's kind of some discussion whether that falls under sex discrimination federally, but we're in the weeds there. I don't want you to worry about that. So again, every state can add to the list if they want to. They just can't take away. So make sure, again, I'm not going to have you memorize every single aspect of page 75, but make sure you have a general idea of what those details are and what is protected under federal law. So for this chapter, what I want you to know are the 4 types of discrimination: disparate treatment, disparate impact, failure to accommodate, and retaliation. Just briefly discuss those. Disparate treatment is essentially you're treating somebody, it's exactly what it says, just you hear treatment. You treat somebody different because of these protected characteristics. So, you treat women differently because they're a woman. You treat somebody who's Hispanic differently because they're Hispanic. You treat somebody differently because they're 85 years old, So again, all those protected characteristics, disparate treatment is you truly treat somebody different. So, I'm going to give, I have 5 employees. I'm going to give all 5 of them a vacation because I want to be nice. But the 6th person who happens to be female, I'm not going to give her because I just want the men to go on vacation. That's a prime example of disparate treatment. You treat somebody different simply because they are in a protected group. Okay, that's disparate treatment. Disparate impact is you're not discriminating directly as you are in treatment, but that whatever policy you have has a negative long-term impact. I'll give you a prime example. So let's say you have a policy where everybody is required to work on Sunday, and then no ifs, ands, or buts. Now that can be kind of a difficult thing. But let's say you have all your employees who want to be able to go to church on Sunday, for example. So having this kind of blanket policy that doesn't allow employees to exercise their religion, where religion is one of the protected characteristics, that could be a problem. So disparate impact is more of whatever policy or procedure you create or some type of company initiative that affects a group differently than other groups. And again, as we go on the semester, I'll get into much more detail about disparate impact. But that's kind of an overview. Failure to accommodate is another big one. It's steadily growing. So a prime example on failure to accommodate is you have somebody who comes into work and they're pregnant, for example, and you don't allow a pregnant woman to attend doctor's appointments to work with her pregnancy, or you don't allow her whenever she has the baby, have time to be able to breast pump for milk for the baby, things along those lines, where you have somebody who is in a protected group, but you don't help them, you don't allow them to follow that natural progression. Again, kind of the same thing with if somebody has to go to church on Wednesday nights for Bible study, for example. You can have them work, but if you never let them off for Bible study, that can be a failure to accommodate their religion. So, and again, we'll go into much more details about this. These are just kind of basic examples. And finally is retaliation, and I think we all kind of inherently know what retaliation is. Somebody, requests time off to go to church, for example, and then when they come back, you tell them, you know what, never church ever again. I'm never going to let you practice your religion because you took off in a busy time. That's retaliation, and that's kind of a basic of what we look at. So those are the 4 types, and again, those are 4 things that we're going to discuss a lot throughout the semester. So make sure, specifically here in Chapter 3, that you have a good idea of what all 4 of those are. Now, you will see a term called prima facie throughout this chapter. So prima facie, it's a legal term, and basically just means, let's just say you feel like you've been discriminated against and you want to sue your employer or bring a lawsuit to either have them stop the discrimination or, if they fire you for one of the things, to try to get money from them, whatever your reason for suing somebody. Courts kind of have this term with employment discrimination called prima facie case. And basically is there enough factual evidence there that you could theoretically win in a court case in front of a judge or jury? That's all it really is. Like, for example, let's say you say, you know what, I feel my boss is discriminating against me because I'm a woman, because I'm African American, and because I have a disability, because I said something in a meeting and they kind of looked at me funny. If that's your only reason, that's probably not discrimination because they didn't take any action. And even if they said something rude, saying something rude or giving you a dirty look, it's unprofessional, but not illegal. So if that was your reason for bringing a lawsuit, the court would say you have not established a prima facie case to bring a lawsuit. Now, if you can say, you know what, not only did they give me a dirty look, but they demoted me, they lowered my pay, they gave me a really bad work schedule, they treated my coworkers differently than me, then you have established a prima facie case. You've provided good evidence that your employer has treated you differently. So in that case, the court would at least allow you to bring the lawsuit forward. So make sure you specifically know what a prima facie case is. How do you establish it, and what is not an establishment? So, and throughout the chapter, there are several little sections that talk about elements of a claim. I think there's 3 or 4 of them. One's on page 82, for example. It'll lay you out kind of the legal background and basis for establishing these claims. Now, I don't expect you to memorize each one of those steps. That would be absurd. That's more for a true law class. But for the purposes of this class, make sure you kind of have a general understanding of what it takes if you want to sue your employer for employment discrimination. What does it take to actually get into court? What do you have to establish to get into a court? Again, I don't care that you know all those little procedures. Just make sure you have the basics of what it means to be able to sue your employer if you feel like you're being targeted for employment discrimination. Well, those are the highlights for this chapter. Again, this chapter is so critical because we're going to talk about it all semester long. So make sure you really read the full details of this chapter. And thank you again, and we'll see you for chapter 4.